It's go, 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 go time.
All right, this is the Next Level Mortgaging Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Martin from Mission 35 Mortgages. This week we have Victor Cinco, our closing specialist from Mission 35. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Good. So you've been our closing specialist. You've been at Mission 35 here for about a year now, right?
Yeah, it's just been just a little over actually. Yeah.
And how's it going for you there? How are you liking it?
You know what? In some ways it feels like it's been forever, and then in other ways it's like the time flew by. So it's been great. It's been great. The team's great. Obviously, interactions are always awesome here.
Right? I started about 15 months ago, and it feels like I've been doing mortgages for my entire life, and it still feels like I know absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I hear you.
Right? So, you're coming up on you're just over a year. You've been our closing specialist there now. Give us an idea of what a closing specialist does, because I know what I do, and I talked a little bit to my people about what I do as a mortgage agent itself. But a closing specialist is a very specific thing. It's does very specific details on
Yeah.
on the mortgage end of things. So give us an idea of what you do there.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is behind the scenes, right? Like you're the superstar. You go out there, you sell the product, you find the clients, you're building the relationships, and then the role of a closing specialist is sort of supportive in the background. We're making sure that packages are being built, that compliance is getting done, that we are reviewing documents. It's a very administrative role, but it's an important one because this is where the details can get missed, right? And then you find out deals fall apart a week or two before closing. It's if the closing specialist is not doing their job, then that's when that happens. It's a dance between what you do and what I do.
So you're my rock star, right? You're the guy that makes sure I haven't screwed up everything I've done, right? You're the one that has to make sure that, and you know what? I've really appreciated because you've taught me how to do that. Like I still have to figure out how to do closing packages, right? And that's going to be my next step. Because like I said, I'm still a year into this. I've only done a handful of deals, and learning how to do the compliance packages was, as tedious as it is, it's such a big part of the job, right? And it
Right.
is
Right.
so important. And people don't understand how regulated we are in this business, right?
Right.
And it's not just us. There's a reason why we ask for so much stuff. It's because the banks, right,
Right.
are so since 2020, when all of a sudden we had, or 2021, we had everything hit the fan, right? The,
Mm-hmm.
the the government has changed so many rules and so many regulations, and how has that changed the role of not just a mortgage agent, but what you do? Because you see so much. It reminds me of my old job as a project coordinator in construction, because I see every piece of paper for every single thing for every job that came
Right.
across my desk, right?
Right.
So you see everything, right? And you have to
Right.
make sure everything is right, every I is dotted and every T is crossed, right? So your job has changed so much over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, and I was on the other side of this as well. And I used to always think of compliance as this sort of like this drag down, this boring thing. Like, why are you making my life difficult? It almost seems like you're doing it on purpose. But the one thing that I've sort of learned to appreciate being in this role is how much what compliance does and what the lenders do and what the regulators do, how much it impacts our image to the public, right? Like the reason we are trusted as mortgage brokers and mortgage agents is because of these regulations, because we're not going out there doing sketchy deals where, loan sharking and things like that, where the client ends up losing out. So I think as annoying and as boring as it can be, I think that we're on the right path. We're on the right track. We're gonna, as an industry, I think we're gonna have a big presence when it comes to lending in general. And you see that with like BMO wanting to come into the broker channel as well, right? Like people are taking
Yeah,
notice.
that's huge. I mean, that's a, you speak of trust, and that's a big thing. You see BMO coming into the industry, and we're in the middle of trying to onboard with them right now. And and trust is such a hard thing to build in this industry, right? I've had my own issues with it in this industry since I've become a mortgage agent, and some of the conversations I've had with people I know that were into this industry before, and my eyes have been opened, and I'm like, how how do people, and I realize now, and I'm like, how do you think that people aren't going to find out about this stuff later, and you're not going to, people don't, I mean, I get asked so many questions, right,
Right.
by the people I work with, by the people I do this stuff with. And I love it when people ask me questions, right? When they ask me questions, even when I don't know the answer, I get to talk to you. I get to talk to Teresa. I get to talk to Brian, and I get to come back and say, give me 10 minutes, give me 15 minutes, let me find an answer for you, because then I know that answer, right?
Right.
And that just is a trust building exercise for the people around you, because you know, if you can't build that trust with those people around you, they're not going to give your card to somebody else, right? They're not going to come
Right.
back to you, right? They're going to go back to the bank. They're going to leave this part of the industry completely, because they're going to have that thought process of who and what we are, right? How do
Right.
you build that
Right.
trust?
Well, to your point, I think that one of the most damaging things as salespeople that you can have is have a client go through buyer's remorse, and like and you're at the end of the day, we are selling a product, right? The mortgage is a product that they're subscribing to, and with the thing with buyer's remorse is that you're not going to find out until later, right? They're not going to find out until later. And so going through the process of answering the questions, and like you say, like it's a good thing that they're asking these questions. It's a good thing that they want to know more about it, because you're making sure that they're making an educated decision, and that they have all the right information in front of them to eliminate that buyer's remorse later on. It's like a silent killer, right?
It is.
Because if you have a problem up front, right, something's wrong, they don't like the rate, whatever it is, you can address it, you can talk, and you can have that discourse if there's a problem that's evident up front. But if it's after the fact, then you don't have the opportunity to fix it. And
Right.
you sort of want to create that opportunity to fix the problems up front.
Yeah, I just went through a deal. I mean, I ended up losing it in the long run, but um, I honestly made a mistake. And, I was upfront with them. I said, I apologize. This was my mistake. I learned from it. This is what I can do to fix it, and I
Right.
caught it before it was done. Right.
Right.
And I was upfront with him, and, and he really appreciated it. He ended up giving me a 5-star review because of everything I was able to do for him. And in the end, it was convenience is why I lost him. And that's it. And that, and that's another thing that we have to deal with right now is, you know, one of the things we're finding right now is the banks are fighting harder than I've ever seen. And I mean, I've only been doing this for a few months compared to a lot of the other people, but I've never seen the banks fight so hard, especially for switches and renewals and stuff for people they've already had. You know,
Mhm.
how do you deal with that line of where it's like you have a great deal, they come forward with a great number, I would love to have you as a client, but I can't really do anything for you at this point. If you want to come back later and we can try and explore things, or, I know I can do better. Hold on. How hard are you willing to fight for this? Where do you draw that line?
It's not always that we can do better in terms of rate, because to your point, banks are fighting hard. Um, but if at least if you're in Hamilton and you look up every 5 blocks, you're going to see a Mission 35. What do you call those?
Better
Banner,
than the
whatever,
bank, the
right? And
billboard,
what do
better
they
than the
say?
bank billboard.
Better than the bank. Why are we better than the bank? Our service is better than the bank. We have a wider range of product. It's more than just the rate. It doesn't say our rates are better than the bank. It's also the brokerage we're better than the bank. And so
Absolutely.
um, the way you sort of handle like those objections where people are finding better rates through RBC, it seems to be a frequent
Yep.
one that keeps popping up, right? Is what, like, if you look at somebody who's gone through the bank, what kind of service are they receiving? How quickly are they answering your phone calls? How quickly are they getting back to you? Um, do you feel like you're taking care of it in the know, or are you sort of always lost, right? Versus if you're going with Todd, um, what kind of service are you getting there? How frequently are you getting your questions answered? If something comes up midway through your term, how confident are you that Todd's going to sort it out for you and will go above and beyond versus whoever was at the bank at the time who may not even be there anymore, right? So Brian had a couple of weeks ago had a really good line, which is, what is my service worth to you, right? What is this experience worth to you? Is it worth an extra $1,000 a year? Is it worth an extra 0.3% or 0.5% on your mortgage? If you write that out as a number, is it worth it to you? Because if it is, then you have that as an anchor to point back to when this conversation comes up. And if it's not, that's perfectly fine as well, right? But you sort of you set that guideline up front, and then you're not wasting your time, right? It's like, if it's not okay, that's not a problem. Go through RBC, go through TD, go through whoever it is that you're going to go through, and I'm here if you need. But we're not going to go down this path. I can put my energy towards other people, right? And I'm always here if you need. Call me back, but I'm not going to chase you because you've already made a decision.
That's a great line. So I love that line.
Cut your losses, right? Cut your losses as a salesperson. And it's a volume game. So the more people you talk to, the more business you get.
One of the ones I use a lot, I like to use, is how many people have you talked to at RBC in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah. Right.
You've talked to 3 different people, right? And how long have you waited for them to get back to you? Right. You called me at so many different times. I've answered the phone every single time. How many times have you emailed me? I've emailed you back within 15 minutes every single time. Yeah. How much is that worth to you in the long run? How much is it worth to you in the fact that 3 years from now, when this deal is done, you know exactly who's going to answer the phone when you call? Right. It's not going to be Joe Smith. Right. It's not going to be Todd Jones at RBC. Right. You know exactly. It's going to be the person that knows everything about this deal already.
You're going to be the person who's tracking rates. When rates go down, you calculate their penalty. You figure out whether it makes sense for them to break their mortgage so they can save money here. The banks aren't going to do that.
Exactly. Right. The banks are there to get what they can, and then they cut loose. Right. You're gonna hear from them again 3 years from now. That's it.
Right.
Whenever the mortgage is renewed, and that's a hard sell on them. And that's, and I've been surprised to see them sell as hard as they have in the last 2 or 3 months. But like you said, our communication, our sales, our customer service, and our whole just community as a whole, our culture I think is worth so much more. And we have some, and it's a long run, and it's going to change in the long run. There's going to be lots of business for everybody in the coming future. And what do you see moving forward in that regard? I mean, I know we just had a rate drop, and we just talked about that this morning. Actually, Brian was talking about it, that we're not seeing that rush to sell and the rush to buy. And I've said it from the word go that all you're going to see is whatever that steady trickle has been until there is some real actual a dam break, right? And it's nobody's there yet, because we're under 5% again, but 5% at when you're buying at 900,000, 4.89 at 500,000 is still hurting people. So they're just doing their best to survive right now.
Yeah, man. Before I get into that, I just want to give kudos to you. You said something earlier. You said, I was dealing with a client and I lost the sale because I made a mistake. And so whenever you say, like, that's hard to admit, right? Not only that you've made a mistake, which is hard enough, but also that you lost the client because of it. But what that tells me is that you're learning from your mistakes, you're learning from your experiences. And when you say, who's going to be there 3 years from now when your mortgage is up for renewal, I'll answer your phone calls. These are small signs that you are great and you're going to be great at this stuff. Like, every week I see you in and out, show up, open houses. Like, whenever people say, because I get questions from agents. I deal with a lot of agents, right? And I get questions all the time. Like, what are people doing right now to get clients? What are people, how can I improve my business? How can I increase my sales? And I sort of go, you see what Todd's doing? You see what he's doing on the weekends? You see that he's baking and coming in and making an impact. That's the stuff that I think makes a huge difference, makes an impact in whether or not you see it on paper. This is a long game. And I think if you keep doing what you're doing, you're
I
gonna do
tell
great.
every new person that comes in that asks me questions like that, you don't have to do it like I do it, but find a way that is your way to do it. Be unique, be memorable somehow. Whether you're going in and talking to a mortgage agent or a real estate agent at an open house, whether you're doing cold calls, whether you're, doing webinars, whether you're, however you're doing it, find a way to make this industry yours, right? Because,
Right.
I came in at 44 years old, right? I spent 25 years in construction before I did this. I knew coming in that, you know, I knew hard work. I knew how to grind. I spent 25
Mhm.
years in construction. I knew how to do hard. And I came in knowing that's what I was going to do. Did I knew how I was going to do that? No, I just knew I was going to work. Did I know I was going to work more than I did when I was in construction? No, but it's a totally different work, right? So
Right.
I tell people all the time, find a way to make the business yours, right?
Right.
Do it digitally, do it socially, do it on the phone, do it in person, find a way to make it yours, right? Because
Right.
there's 1,000 different ways for this business to be done, right? I do it my way. I do it with baked goods and I do it in person, right?
Mhm.
I probably introduced myself to 200 different or 300 different real estate agents over the last year,
Mhm.
right? And it's worked for maybe a dozen of them,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And
Well, and
now I'm
that's the
going
beauty.
further.
That's the beauty of this business, that you can build it around who you are, right?
Yep.
Construction, you got to show up to that job site. You got to do it that way. This business can be built around you, and if you do it right, and if you have patience, your quality of life is just gonna
Oh
take
yeah,
off.
exactly. Right. And
Um,
that's the thing. Go ahead.
yeah, no, to get back to your question, I don't know what's gonna happen. I see things as being quite stable right now. I know they don't feel like it, um, but I don't think that we're gonna go crazy either way. I think that we're just sort of gonna bob in the water for a bit and sort of ride
Yep.
things down, unless kind of waiting on to see what happens with the U.S. election, waiting to see what happens with the war in Ukraine. Like, unless you
Yeah.
have some crazy thing pop off, I don't think that we're gonna see like a huge decrease in rates or a huge shift in the market. I think it's my opinion. I'm not speaking for the brokers,
No,
but
I
I
agree.
think we're sort of gonna just ride it out for a bit. You know, I would confidently say a year, maybe two.
It took us a decade to get from 5 to 2 last time.
Yeah.
And the bank has said their goal is to get down to 2 again. The Bank of Canada, I don't think it's going to take time. And people are trying to wait it out. And, my mortgage comes up next June. Am I looking forward to it? No. Um,
Right.
I mean, mine at 1.89% right now. I will probably
Wow.
be in the threes or fours next year somewhere. But I said in October of last year, I said the rate's going to drop in June. I
Mhm.
said they'll probably drop it a quarter point. I said they might drop it again in July. I said you're going to see 50 to 3/4 of a point next year. They're going to
Mhm.
drop it in the off times to try and keep a steady market steady, and they're going to
Mhm.
drop it in June and July, and then probably in November. They're going to let
Mhm.
the spring market and the fall market do their thing and try. I think if we get a splash at any point in time, it might be in the fall. We might see if, but the Bank of Canada wants to see stability.
Right.
We had that point in time last March where we stayed put and things went to hell in a handbasket really quick after that.
Right.
So they want to see that stability. They want to see inflation stay put after they drop it. They want to see unemployment do its thing. They want to see the Canada economy do its thing because it's actually been slower than expected lately, despite its fact that it has had gains. But we're
Right.
gonna have to wait and see. So
Yeah.
Anyways,
I think that's a great observation.
it's, I always like finances to an extent and economy, but I never really followed it. I got into this business and I have learned more in 12 months than I learned in 40 years. And right, I follow people I never followed before. I learned economics, guerrilla style, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And now I have my own self-directed finances, and I have safe stuff. I have safe money, right? And it's fun, and I've learned how to do it. So, and it's because of this business. And I happily give my opinions when people ask. I tell people all the time, this is my opinion. I think this is what happens. It's going to happen. I've been right a couple times. I've been wrong a couple times, and yeah, we're gonna have to just keep watching and spinning that crystal ball.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The more that you learn and grow, the more that you can do for your clients. So you're on the right path, regardless.
Absolutely. All right, Victor, I thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on. And I'll be down there later this week with some brownies for you.
Thanks for the opportunity, man. Love being on.
Cheers, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Take care.
Guys, hit that like and subscribe button, and you know where to find me. Have a good one, guys.